My brother gave my psychotic mom my home address and helped her destroy my belongings and my life. So I finally sent him packing. A year later, he's back begging me to save him from her. Growing up, my parents rarely even saw each other, mainly because they had nothing in common. But there was one thing they could always bond over, and that was violence. My dad would come home from an over 12-hour shift at work to a meal my mom made, and we'd all sit together at the kitchen table. The first few bites were the best. No fighting, no screaming. Sometimes I even liked to lie to myself and pretend like we were just a normal family enjoying a nice evening. But that illusion never lasted longer than a few minutes, because that's when my mom would say something. "Can't you eat a little effing quieter?" she'd say to my younger brother, Dustin. Or, "Chew slower, you greedy beach," towards me. My dad never defended us, but this would always make him sigh and bury his head in his hands. That's when the violence would start, and me and Dustin would be forced to finish our dinners in our rooms. This routine got so consistent that sometimes I'd make myself laugh by asking myself things like, "I wonder how many times my dad will hit my mom today," or "I wonder how long before the family dinner turns into a boxing arena." Just some dark humor. You know the drill. And I guess my brother was pretty traumatized by their little shenanigans too, because whenever I made these jokes out loud, he would literally laugh his butt off, sometimes so hard that he swore his abs were growing. That was when I first realized that even though I couldn't protect my brother with strength, I could protect him with distraction. That's pretty much how we survived our entire childhoods. And as soon as I moved away for college, I let him sleep on my dorm room floor with a spare mattress. He was 14 at the time, but our parents had effed him up so bad that he was wetting the bed every night. Sometimes he couldn't even do his homework because of how hard his hands were trembling all the time. But the worst thing he developed was an eating disorder called ARFID. For those who don't know, it's not about weight or body image. People with ARFID hate most foods, and as I learned from my brother, they wish they never had to eat again. Obviously, I gathered that this came from the fact that almost all of our meals were accompanied with abuse, and he knew it too. But for years, it never went away. If he ever tried to eat anything other than his safe foods, he would gag and shut his eyes really tight. So his diet pretty much consisted of white bread, frozen waffles, yogurt, peas, and apple juice. I never wanted to trigger him, so I always hid my own ED from him, Anna. But I think somehow he figured it out, because he always seemed a lot less tense around the topic of food when he was with me. He knew that I knew, and what made it even harder was that our mom used to praise him for eating such a restrictive diet. "You never complain about eating the same meal every day," she'd say with a smile so bright it was practically radiating through the whole house. And since this was the only compliment he ever heard from him, it made it even worse. I first noticed his restrictive eating when I was 16 and he was 12. I didn't say anything, just tried to encourage him to try new foods. When it wasn't working, I got a little pushier, and that's when he figured it out. But he didn't confront me about it. Instead, he told our mom, "Mommy Myrtle is trying to spoil me." The bull on... He yelled at the top of his lungs. My heart dropped, and suddenly my mom burst through the doors. I'll spare you the details, but let's just say she did everything she could to make sure I never did it again. So much so that I clutched my stomach and rocked back and forth on the wooden floor for almost half an hour, trying to process what she'd done to me. And instead of comforting me, she praised Dustin. "You are my golden boy," she sang out for practically the entire month following. And every time, Dustin's face would light up as if it was the first time he was hearing it. So now that we were alone in my college dorm, away from our family's house of horrors, I thought things had changed.